Hey, welcome guys. Also in this video that I'm gonna to introduce the new topic. Basically, is Sylow theorem. Okay, so this type of this theorem is very famous in the classification of finite group, but it's somehow like very complicated. Okay, so so this is somehow like the additional topic. If you're interested, then it's basically I think it will be very cool. It's a very cool topic in a standard group theory, but maybe it's an additional topic in the applied group theory. But I will still make a video on it. So I think it's very fun, and it has a very various applications. So I will spend like maybe 3 videos on it. Okay, so hope you guys subscribe to my channel. Okay, so let me just define. Let me just say the results. So basically, Sylow has 3 theorems, and the first theorem. So basically, if we are very interesting when G can say the group order G is P to the n times M, where P is right, and let's say G this M is coprime to P. So basically, P to n is the largest P factor that you can factor out from G. Okay, Sylow theorem is basically some the inverse theorem about Lagrange. Okay, so the first theorem. So this one is very difficult. This theorem says that there exists so-called Sylow p subgroup. Okay, so let me just first define. So the Sylow p group is a subgroup H with order p to n. So basically, Sylow P is the largest subgroup which given G can have, but because P to n is already the largest by the Lagrange theorem. So the first theorem basically said that give for any P, so there exists a Sylow P subgroup. So Sylow P exists. Okay, and theorem 2. And if theorem 2 says that all Sylow P group are conjugate. So meaning that if I give you H1, H2, they are both Sylow P, they are both subgroup with order P to n, then there exists G in G such that G H1 G inverse as a set is the same as H2. Okay, and actually we will prove the stronger results. And theorem 3 is much more interesting. If you define MP to be the number of Sylow P, then first Cm is divisible by the factor of M, so M is here. Okay, and the second condition is that this MP is 1 mod P. Okay, and this is the Sylow theorem. Okay, so let me just prove it. The proof is much more complicated, so I will do it like slowly, but if you feel complicated, you can just pause the video and think a little bit. So all the techniques are basically so-called group actions. So let me just quickly recall. If you G apply on S, if you have any G identity apply on S is the same as, and the GHS equals S. These are called group action. And so the S can be factored out into so-called different coset, orbit. And what orbit means is that if you basically if you start with S, then you can do it's a GS where G in G. So basically, orbit is the set that you start with S. And the more interesting is this OS can be identified with so-called stabilizer. It's GS divided by GS, and this small GS is the order group elements such that it fixes S. This is called stabilizer. Okay, so all you need is this tool. So these are like some tool that you should know about this. And there's a special case. So when G acts on S transitively, so transitively meaning that there's only one orbit, then this formula can be just reduced to the following, very simple. So S just G divided by OS, sorry, GS. Because there's only single term, right? Because each transitively meaning that you can start with any elements and apply some group elements, then you go to another elements. Okay, so theorem 1. Theorem 1 says that there exists a Sylow P. So let's quickly let's go. Actually, there are various proofs, but there's a quite interesting proof. So let me just write down the. So we borrow a number theory fact that to prove this, you just need to elementary number theory. It says that if you go to the p to n m and choose p to the n, so this is binomial coefficient, right? So this number is coprime to p. Meaning there is no extra prime factors p come from here. So to prove this, you need to use some basic number theory. But I'm gonna just skip. I just assume that this is true. So, but it's very simple. You can prove this. So now, so proof of this Sylow P exists. We just take subset J. So maybe I take S to be let's say all the subsets. Maybe I use J in G, and the J, the number of J is P to N. So this is a subset, right? So there are a lot of, so the number of S is basically P to N times N divided by choose P to N. So this is just binomial coefficient, right? This is all a subset. Okay, and then now I define Gx on S. So I need to lay, if you give me subsets, I need to ask what's the relation, what's the definition, right? So the group action is very simple. J just map to Gj. So this just permutes elements. But it's a subset, right? So it's fine. You will permute very rapidly. Okay, so now let's see the class equation. So number of S, which is coprime to P. Coprime to P. Okay, so you basically written it write as a different G divided by GS. But since it's coprime to P, and this is P to the N divided by N, right? So there must exist some GS, which is basically greater or equal to Pn and something, right? Pn maybe something. Because if everything is divisible by if there's a remaining p factor in these terms, then this guy will be multiple of p. So there must exist some stabilizer such that its size is greater or equal to p to, and it will basically consume all the p factors, consume all the p power. Okay, so you know there exists a GS which greater or equal to p to the n times something. So this is okay. So the rest of our proof just show that this something is actually 1. Okay. So now the rest are simple. So you notice that this S, right? This GS is some elements here. So this S will correspond to some subset J. Okay. Now, so this element GS is all the group elements such that Gj equals to J. Okay, so now my claim is the following. My claim that the GS is that indeed less or equal to J, which is P to N. If this is proof, then by this condition, by this greater or equal to P to N or less or equal to P to N, it will show that GS is basically P to N. Okay, so to prove this is very simple. So we notice the following. So for all, let's say I pick let's say J in J. So I consider the following map, which map GS to the to J by just G and Gj. Okay. So first, Right? By definition, this is well-defined map because every G map to Gj, and Gj belongs to J. Why? because Gj is a set of J. It's exactly the set. So if you take element J here, small j here, then Gj will be some element here. So this map is well-defined, and moreover, this map is injective, because if I have two elements which Gj equals Hj, then definitely H is these are in a group, right? So G equals H. So this map are injective. Okay, but if it's injective, then shows that Gj is also equal to J. Okay, so this Gs is a Sylow P. Okay, good. So this proves the first theorem. Now let's prove the second theorem. Okay, so second theorem. Second theorem is much more it's simple, very simple. So we just take actually we will prove the stronger results. So let's say I take H to be P to the K, where K is equal to N. So H is not a C, not general Sylow P, but just any P group. Then there is this G in G, such that G inverse will be subset of P, where this guy is a Sylow group. So basically, you will conjugate to anything. You will basically you can find a G such that it is basically shift into some Sylow P. So so if you pick by the way, if you pick K to be N, then this H becomes Sylow P. But this theorem will become like QP GQP G inverse for Sylow Q, or if you isolate it is also Sylow P. It's the same as another Sylow P because their size are the same, right? So it means that they are conjugate to each other. So this is much more stronger results. You just say that every P group can be absorbed if you conjugate, then it will be subset of some Sylow P. Actually, this is true for all Sylow P. So I should say that if you take any P group and any Sylow P, then there always is some elements you can conjugate, then well inside is Sylow P. Right, so if you take H to be another Sylow P, then basically you prove they are always conjugate to each other. Proof. This is proof is very interesting. So you just take G divided by P, right? So you take this P here, and you just quotient. So this is not a subgroup, normal subgroup, but it's a coset. Now I can add G apply on it. Not G, use H apply on it. By the group action. So this group action is the if I take H, then I just map HP. So HGP. So this every element in it is defined as a GP, right? GP. But H apply on GP. So H apply on GP will just define to be HGP. Okay, so now we can use a class formula. Okay, but so notice that H, so size of this guy is M, because this is just P to N divided by M divided by P to N. So this is coprime to P. But as the same thing, right? This is H divided by something, and this is P to the something, right? P to K. So in order for this guy to make sense, it must exist some element, some GS here, such that this GS absorb all the prime factors, or P to K or something, right? It should eat up all the basically it should be P to the K, right? Eat up all the prime factors. So let's say orbits. Let's say this is so the orbit is element in of G quotient P. So this S will correspond to some GP for some G. Okay, so HGP will be fixed in GP, right? For every H in each. So it's G inverse HGP equals to P for every H in H. So this is a set equation, which tells me that G inverse HG is a subset of P. But this is for every H, right? So G inverse HG is a subset of P. Okay, so let's finish the proof. So second theorem is proof. The third theorem is much more complicated. So I leave it as next videos.